Hi, Cheryl.
Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. If anyone would like to sign up for the public comment, if you are on the Zoom call, please do so via the chat feature. Do not leave comments in the chat. They will not be acknowledged. And if you're here in person, the sign-up book is in the back of the room next to the pizza. We do want to thank our friends as well. I'll leave that up to Ray. I just want to let everyone know that we do have a hard stop of 5 p.m. We have 3 trustees that have a really strong commitment. When we changed the date, it kind of, everyone accommodated for us, so it's a hard stop of 5 p.m. So I just ask that everyone stick to the schedule, and I will remind you if we're running late on to kind of keep you in. All yours, Ray.
Great. Great. Well, thank you very much. Here I call this meeting to order, and I'm Dr. Ray Liu. I'm Chair of the Board of Trustees at the Boston Public Library. Just want to say a huge thanks on behalf of all of the trustees for hosting us here. This is a wonderful library. It's actually my first time here, and it's actually the closest one to my own home, so I'm excited to make this my second home. Thank you also to the friends of the library for the wonderful snacks. I see lots of pizza boxes, so I assume folks can just get up and just grab some more. I will not be, none of us will be offended, of course. So with that in mind, we'll get things started. And well, maybe next slide, if that's okay. Yes. So BPL opening statements without getting certainly into politics, but I think this rings especially true to all of us today, which I will read. The trustees of the Boston Public Library reaffirm our commitment to racial equity and to principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion more broadly. The library is formally committed to becoming an anti-racist organization in response to systemic racism, inequity, and injustice prevalent in our society. We acknowledge also that the Boston Public Library's Central Library stands on land that was once a water-based ecosystem providing sustenance for the indigenous Massachusetts people and is a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst nations. We're committed to land acknowledgement for all locations at which we operate, and we reaffirm this commitment to set the context for our planning, deliberations, and public engagement so that they take place from a spirit of welcome and respect found in our motto, free to all. Thank you very much.
Next slide.
Great. I think I started off with the welcome remarks, so maybe we'll just go to roll call, if that's okay?
Sure thing. Just wanted to reiterate, due to the change of date, we do have a few of our trustees that are joining us via Zoom, which is an anomaly and not a common practice. Arana Ortiz?
I'm here. Remote.
Yep. Najib Bal will be absent today.
Yeah.
Berman?
Here.
Jim Canales will also be absent today. Cheryl Cronin?
Here.
Heiler?
Here.
There we go. Hawkins?
Here.
Kim? Julie Kim? We'll move on. Jonathan Levine?
Here.
Ray Liu?
Here.
Jose Masso will be absent, as well as Portia Oliwala. Mike Rush?
Here.
Christian Westra?
Here.
And Perry Wooten. Lynn, Perry Wooten? She's also joining us online.
Great.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Pamela. With that in mind, want to review and call for approval for the minutes of our meeting December 13th, 2024. Just very briefly, of course, that was the meeting which we all approved the 2025 to 2030 strategic plan for the Boston Public Library, which was an incredible step forward. So with that in mind, do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? And so moved. So approved for the minutes of December 13th, 2024. With that, I will hand things over to the President's report. David Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, trustees. I would now just like to open with a big thank you to the staff here at the Honan Alston branch for welcoming us here, led by Karen O'Connor, the branch librarian, and also to the Friends of the branch, led by Vice President Sarah Markell, who a former BPL employee. Good to see you again also. And just a quick note to thank all of the staff, not just Karen and her team, but particularly the custodian here, who did an amazing job in getting us ready for today. So I'll just turn it over to Karen and Sarah for a few slides.
Thank you, and we'd like to welcome everybody today. If you haven't seen the building and you have time, please feel free to roam around. Okay, let's see. Okay. This is our building that opened in 2001 on the bottom. On the top is a picture that was taken in 1919. I believe that was the second building. Before that, there was a reading room in 1905. So the first time that Alston had books, a book delivery system, was in a drugstore on Franklin Street, which is right down the street. And it was, they were delivered by horse-drawn buggies. And Frank Howe owned the drugstore, and in the window, he had a baby alligator in a tank that everybody used to come and see, and he would put the books next to them. So it became a full-service branch in 1924 before it moved to 161 Harvard Ave in 1929, and it was closed because of budget cuts in 1981. Like I said, the current location opened in 2001, and in 2003, the branch was renamed the Honan Alston Branch in honor of the late city councilor Brian Honan. And we just found out that Brian and Kevin's mother just passed away a couple of days ago. So, let me see. Some special features of the branch, excuse me, we have courtyards on the left. We have a art gallery right outside of this room, although it's empty right now. We have an artist coming in soon. And if you look out the windows over here, we have lions. And they were here when the space was excavated and the building, it was being cleared out for the building and the park. And now they're fountains. Harvard has turned them into fountains, and the kids have named them. There's little plaques on them. Okay. These are the librarians. Up on the left is Sarah Moen. She's our Generalist 2 librarian. The next one is me, branch librarian, Karen O'Connor. And on the bottom, we have what looks to be a children's librarian. You can always tell them. They have puppets, and Charlie Brown's in the background. So the library assistants that we have right now, Janet on the left has been here, I believe, since the building opened. She's the special library assistant, Janet Guerra. And on the right, we have senior library assistant, JLC Baez Soto. She is here from Adams Street. She's on loan. She does a very good job. Okay, sorry. I'm just shaking. Here we have Robert Orlandino. He cleaned everything for your visit. And on the right is the security guard, Madison Jacob. Everybody looks so happy to be working. Huh? We have some circulation numbers from the first part of the year, first 6 months of the fiscal year. And each quarter, there was between 13 and 14,000 in circ, and then, of course, 26, almost 27,000 at the end of the 6 months, which isn't the highest to have been, but it's decent. Program numbers from July 24 to December 2024, we held 107 programs that were attended by 1,694 people. Hello. Okay. Every summer we have Read Boston. They come in 4 weeks in a row. We have storytellers, and all the kids you can see on the right, they get to pick out books to take home. And we had more than 500 children this past summer in 4 sessions. It's a great program. In the children's room, we have a couple of special things. Up on the left, these are our twins. They've been coming here since they were little babies, and they were in the Baby Lab Sit programs. Up on the right is a middle school class from the Gardner, which is right up the street, Gardner Pilot Academy. There's Caroline again, helping a student. And I like this picture because he looks, I mean, it's like a serious picture. You just know that the respect is there on both sides. You know, it's very nice. And over on the right, we have a sensory space. sponsored by the Friends Group, and that's the end of it, and they love it. All the babies come in, and the parents can sit on the couches, and the babies are playing around with everything. Okay, so children's programming. We like snake programs, because everybody, I don't know if you can see the snake, it's, anyway. And then we have toddler yoga up on top, and this was a dinosaur that Caroline produced with the help of the kids, a paper mache dinosaur. It was great. We have a lot of adult craft programs because we figured out that they really enjoy them. So there's silk painting up on top, and then a jewelry making class, and on the bottom it was a floral arranging class in the autumn. Friends-sponsored adult programs, they, for the book club and for Sip and Stitch, they provide the refreshments. And for yoga, they paid for the instructor, and that was going on for at least 6 months. So Sip and Stitch is just what it sounds like. Drink tea and knit. Okay, now, this is the longest program. Our sewing program began in 2014 and is still successful. It's sponsored by the Friends of the Honan Alston branch with grants from the Harvard Alston Partnership Fund. We get all age groups, all nationalities. For the first year, we got the sewing machines and the instructor. And it's just been a very pleasant surprise. It's on Thursday mornings. And we get a lot of people that are looking for jobs, and the community that's formed is just incredible. So, this is Sarah.
Hello, everyone. I would like to introduce the members, the board members of the Friends of the Honan Alston Branch Library, who are here today. Brian McLaughlin, Rita DeJesse in the last row, for whom this room you're meeting in is named. Barbara Busalowitz, also in the last row on the other side. I know Bob Dale is here, there, he's waving. And the rest of, and myself, Jerry Sullivan, our treasurer, could not be here today. Bob Pesek could not be here today, and another member, Jimmy George, could not be here today. Our volunteer-based nonprofit group was formed to support and expand community programming at the branch. The Friends apply for and receive grants and donations in addition to membership dues, and we coordinate with Karen and library staff to provide help with whatever is needed. Some of our successful projects have been, as Karen was showing the photographs, the slides of the sewing machines for the popular sewing instruction classes, the whole teen area, which is now got furniture that's set up especially for doing research, homework, and job searching. Other special materials and furnishings for autistic children in the far corner of the children's room, which Karen also showed slides of. The tracking system you'll see in the art gallery just outside this room, which is used to hang works of art in the gallery. A soundproofing system for this room, signage for the naming of this room after Rita DeJesse, for speaker forums, concerts. We had to move the baby grand piano, but one of the friends, Jimmy George, donated a baby grand piano when, in the early days that we were open. It usually sits in this corner here. This is where we hold our book sales, and community civic meetings are also held in this room. Thank you.
One more slide. I found this patron review online when I was doing this, and I thought it was so lovely I wanted to include it. The Honan Alston Library has been my sanctuary since moving here. Its calming presence seeps into you as soon as you enter the doors, like entering a private world where you can lose yourself in whatever book you choose. The parts I enjoy the most are the ethereal atrium that sits in the middle of the building and the effervescent Raymond V. Malone Park that is neatly tucked away behind the building. These are perhaps my two favorite places to read, excuse me, in all of Boston. It's quiet, just you and the sounds of birds chirping, and there is nothing like having a pocket of nature to escape into and feel at peace. I couldn't recommend going to the Honan Allston branch to relax and enjoy the pleasures of reading more. This was Luke from Allston. Okay, that's our presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any yes, questions or comments for trustees?
Thank
for
you.
Karen?
Sure. Before you all leave the room, thank you both for that great presentation. It's so wonderful to see the community that is being built here. Karen, I just have if you don't mind, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just have a quick question about your circulation data. It looks like about 13,000 per quarter, you said. Is that a combination of e-books and regular old-fashioned books, or how do you?
It's all materials together.
All materials together? Is there a way that you can figure out like how many people are actually taking a book off a shelf versus an e-book, or is that impossible to figure out?
You can look into it.
I'm just curious, in this new day and age of, e-books, how many people are actually still reading, like I do, the hardcovers and
It's
stuff
a
like
lot.
that? Okay, good.
People in this branch, people take out like a stack of books at a time.
Great, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, trustees. It's now my pleasure to introduce one of the newest key staff members with system-wide responsibility, and that is Kyra Altman, who is our new Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Manager, who has system-wide responsibilities, even though we're here at a branch. So, Kyra, would you like to come forward and just say a few words and introduce yourself?
Hello. It is a pleasure to be here, and I feel really grateful to be in the presence of so many leaders in this community and also within the BPL world. I will not take up too much time, but I want to briefly introduce myself and share a bit more about what my role will look like and how I can best support the BPL community. My name is, again, Kyra Altman. I use she, her pronouns. I joined as our Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Manager, and of course, what's special about that title is the E comes before the other letters. Equity really has and will always stand at the root of everything that we do and ground us during times of uncertainty as well. A little background on myself. So I am still a very new employee. I joined late December, so I've only been here for about a month. In that month, I have been in awe of the amazing work being done across branches, across our system. I am a lifelong Massachusetts resident. I spent some time in DC, but I was born here, I live here, and Boston is my community as well. My educational background focuses on human services, social justice, public health, and then throwing in there some entrepreneurship and innovation. And so when I approach this work and when I approach thinking about equity, diversity, and inclusion at BPL, I'm bringing these different lenses to the work, and they will shape how I interact with everyone that I come in contact with. In my background, being rooted in human services, I have always had a very hard time separating human services, community well-being from equity. And so you'll see a lot of those themes kind of being threaded together in the work that I do here at BPL. I am also currently studying business management and impact measurement through a Harvard Business School CLIMB program for experienced leaders. So I also hope to bring in that education as I receive it this year and apply that to my work at BPL. Last year, I was named one of the 10 most influential DEI leaders of 2024 by the Inc. magazine. And while I appreciate that title and recognition, I do believe that any great EDI expert or leader is one who is constantly learning, constantly receiving feedback, and always evolving with changing times, because times will always change. It's the one thing we can count on. And so I will spend a lot of time in the near future really just listening and learning and connecting with our staff to really understand what their day-to-day looks like and how I can best support them moving forward. If you go back a little bit in my professional background, I founded a nonprofit when I was 16 years old. I spent the next 11 years scaling that organization through high school, through college. I became a CEO at age 19, and I have learned a lot through that role. That role also transitioned into a consulting role where I was able to work with over 200 different institutions across sectors, private, public, government, nonprofit, and really help provide them with mental health and EDI literacy to support their teams, to support cultural transformation, and to support building cultures that are rooted in our values and why we do this really important work. You'll hear me say this a lot, but I do believe it's not just the work that we do that matters, but it's how we do that work and the manner in which we focus on equity. I am committed to empowering BPL staff to not just exist within our spaces, but to thrive, whatever that means, and even if that is on an individual or a collective or even branch-wide level. And so a large part of my work will be visiting branches, will be connecting and again learning from the amazing brains that we have on our staff already. While there is a lot of fun work to be done when it comes to EDI in collections and in events and awareness months and all of that, and I will provide support as much as I can, BPL already does a really phenomenal job in a lot of those ways. And so my goal, at least in the next few years, is to really focus in on supporting our staff internally to help think about some of those systemic barriers that might exist for staff who want to move up within the institution, also making sure that they have access to the right resources, professional development that they might want, accommodations, to really, again, not just survive and exist, but to thrive within our spaces just as much as we want our patrons to. And so thinking about that and trying to create that space for both patrons and staff is front of mind for me this year and moving forward. Also, in my last large role, I was there for over a decade, so I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. I know that this work takes time. I know that this work takes a lot of persistence, a lot of determination, and a lot of listening. And so I really am here to learn, and I will rely on all of you to kind of inform that work and our steps forward. For the coming months, again, I plan to focus on building meaningful relationships across the library system. I plan to spend at least one day every single week actually working remotely from one of our branches to really get to know the team and the culture there, and to also hear what challenges might be coming up that I can support. I also plan on collecting data and mapping out the existing EDI initiatives that we already have going on. I can tell you in just a month, in every conversation I have, I learn about this incredible new initiative or resource or accessible tool that's being used or offered that we don't necessarily have written down somewhere. And so a huge piece of what I'm doing right now is just collecting and mapping and identifying what resources we have, figuring out, are they accessible, are they used, and how can we amplify that impact across branches. The strategic plan is also going to be what grounds my work moving forward. Over the next few years, I will be aligning any of my initiatives as well as supporting staff with initiatives that align very directly with our strategic plan and the strategic roles that we hope to have over the next 5 years. Finally, my job really, in my mind, is to support individuals who work here at BPL, as well as to think about how they fit into the bigger system. So that was a lot to introduce who I am, but I wanted to at least share that, say hello, and let you know I am ready and happy and excited to talk to anyone who wants to chat with me to add to that context that I will need to do my job well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. So we're really thrilled to have Kyra on board, and we know that we have centered the equity work of the library both in the strategic plan and in other areas of our activities. I do want to, at this point, move to a little quick update on the strategic planning thoughts, because we spent all of last year really building the plan, and now we have to implement the plan. So by way of introduction to the work of the next 3 months in particular, 3 to 6 months, I want to update the trustees on 2 major categories of the work. We know that the plan is centered around 4 strategic roles, and that there are 12 particular goal areas. Could I be calling for next slides?
Yes,
Next slide.
I was just going to say.
Next slide. Yeah.
And just a refresher, there are the 4 roles, there are the 12 goals. There are the organizational readiness areas, workplace culture, staff development, resource development, collaboration, and again, centering equity in that space. So if we could just move forward 2 slides, 3 slides. Here's the goals, organizational readiness, and the work. So let's boil down to the brass tacks of this next set of challenges. So we have 4 roles, 15 public goals in terms of our service areas, and 5 organizational areas. Within all of that, there are actually 86 initiatives, individual initiatives, when you go through the whole document. And so our work in implementation planning will be to turn those into actionable tactics and plans. And in order to do that, we are hiring some project management capacity to augment our own staff. And then there will be a series of inputs to work on these items and come back to you with a set of implementation plans to make this real. Because the last thing anybody wants is, we do not want this to be a plan that sits on a shelf or that we just look at again in 5 years. We want to get to the point where it informs our daily projects and our daily work. And to do that, we want to take the time to properly address these next few months of work and get it right, so that the remaining balance of the 5 years is about execution in its entirety. Next slide, please. In addition to implementation planning, we're also engaging in a multifaceted socialization approach with the plan. Yes, we have to publish it and print it. It's on our website, but we also do want to have some printed documents for that. We've begun a series of exercises with the BPL Fund around introducing it to the prospect and donor community. We will conduct a full review with all staff in webinar format over the coming weeks, and that will be followed by a set of roundtables and roadshows as well. Our goal with this phase is to increase understanding, to develop buy-in, and to create adoption. That socialization work, coupled with the early implementation planning, we believe sets us on a good path for the next 4 to 5 years. You may look at me and say, well, you just did a year of planning, why do you need to plan the implementation? I think to do a service, to do service and justice to the work of the last year, we have to do this in a measured and committed way. Some operational updates
David?
before we, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Ray.
Trying to catch us up on time.
Really quickly, just the input that you've had from different groups into the plan. I mean, you wanted to just mention that a little bit from.
Yeah, so throughout the course of the last year, there was a staff working group, there were community surveys, there were community-based interviews. Christian led with Jose our strategic planning committee of the trustees to help manage the process as well as garner input at that level. We had community breakfast opportunity. So part of the goal has to be returning to these communities and stakeholders who had input in a way to take this plan forward, and not just to update them, but to involve them in the process.
Can I, sorry, you,
No, sure.
oh, I was just, are you, maybe, sorry if I misunderstood this. Are you saying that now we have, our plan is to take a year to plan for implementation?
3 to 6 months.
Okay, fine, thank you.
So certainly by the time we hit June, we should
All right,
be
okay.
I mean, there are some things we're already doing, right?
Yeah,
We're not
yeah.
waiting.
Okay.
But with 116 individual
Yeah.
items that we need
That's
to
fine.
plan out.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Thank
okay,
you.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much for the update, David. This is helpful, and as we discussed during the process, the implementation part is going to be key. I do think it's important for the trustees to continue to be a part of this discussion. There are 86 initiatives, for example. Which of those you emphasize, how you sequence them, all of that will matter a lot, and ultimately, the success of the plan will depend on our ability to convey it clearly and in a simple way to the community at large. And I would love to see the trustees a part of that process as well. How do we, when we explain the plan to the community and we develop a communication strategy to get the plan out as broadly as possible, how do we do that? What do we emphasize? So having a process manager makes good sense and is necessary, but so too is the involvement of the trustees.
Thank you.
David, I have a question. You know, I'm one of the biggest fans of the plan. And I wonder, what is having to change in the plan, or what are you having to adapt in the current geopolitical climate? Because that's what we're spending a lot of time thinking about, and I haven't.
I think, you know, this is a conversation we should engage in together. You know, I think there are, by the geopolitical climate, I think you're referring primarily to activities in Washington, D.C. and their knock-on effects. And we know that there are some potential funding threats across the spectrum of what we're facing. We know that there are policies being communicated, or draft policies being communicated by executive order, for example. And we also know that there's a strong pushback against any principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion across, whether it's universities, the nonprofit sector, business, and so on and so forth. So at this stage, and it is changing on a daily, if not hourly basis in some cases. And so I think we are continuing with our city colleagues to monitor exactly what is needing to be reacted to. As you heard in both the chair's opening statement and our introduction of our new Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Manager, the library, I think, and certainly I believe we should be drawing a line in the sand around where these values and principles exist. We have work to do internally about how to fully absorb some of those, but at this point in time, you know, the best thing we can do at this moment is we have a strong plan, we have a year's worth of work. I think committing to what that calls us to is important. As we get to implementation, there may be certain prioritizations or funding and capacity needs that show up in the conversation that we need to take different account of. This is about moving forward on the path that we have committed to, as far as I'm concerned.
I just want to add, Julie Kim would like to ask a question. Julie, I just need you to unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
You're all set.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So a quick question in terms of prioritization and funding, because obviously not all of the initiatives will be able to be completed in a single budget year. And as the funding for future years isn't always guaranteed, it would be helpful to understand how you're thinking about prioritization of initiatives in a, you know, an uncertain funding environment.
I think cautiously is the short answer to that question, Julie. Our various budget submission processes have already started for the fiscal year ahead. Emily will be giving us a briefing in a few minutes on the current status of budget submissions. Those were due before we had taken the official vote on approving the plan in December. And so we in some ways have this opportunity now to you know, look at the implementation planning work and what that calls us to, but we will have to measure that against what we're able to do, as well as guidance from city and state stakeholders in terms of what the budgets will accommodate. And so I think we're in this period of needing to be both cautious, very judicious, but at the same time wanting to move our agenda forward.
I think that's a great segue. Thank you, Julie, for that question around funding to our next agenda item. I think, David, one of the through lines that you're seeing with all these questions is the fact that the trustees care very deeply about this body of work. And as we've talked about before, you know, there are limited responsibilities of the trustees, but this is one of them. And so whether it calls for a special meeting of this group afterwards and in intervening times for a discussion just about this, and I think the full question, the real question is how can we help? And what can we do to advance this work, either through intellectual guidance, obviously socialization / resourcing. So,
yeah,
with that
I
much.
thank you for that. I mean, I do think that at the end of the day, our staff and our community are also feeling somewhat under threat by this geopolitical reality. And so your support in ensuring that we're advocating for the funding support, for the work with community, and to shore up our staff culture, our staff organization is very important.
Great. With that in mind, thank you very much. You still have any operational updates?
Yeah, just a quick slide here on our staffing status. Speaking of staff, right as of last week, we are at 495 employees. We're continuing to manage an active vacancy list that continues to range in the 40 to 50. And we'll hear a little bit more in the budget about where we're headed. But we're estimating that our fully staffed body of staff would be at about 540 people. You know, there's always some turnover in that mixture, and so that's really where we'll be. Next slide, please. I also want to alert trustees to the fact that several of our older buildings continue to face constraints and problems around mechanical systems, roofs, windows, and so on and so forth. Our new operations team continues to respond to those issues as they occur. But we are seeing, you know, we have wonderful new modern branches, in some ways starting with this particular branch in 2001 in Hyde Park, and those that follow, but those from the earlier period that we are rushing to get capital renovations for, we're in a little bit of a race against time, so that will continue to be a challenge for right now. Just a quick note on the state funding lines in the legislative agenda. Next slide, please. We have here the 3 state lines that support the Boston Public Library in addition to other partners across the state. The coalition led by the Mass Board of Library Commissioners is advocating for increases between 5 and 10% across these lines. Whether that holds given the current reality, we will have to see. But that's one baseline I want trustees to be aware of as we go into this budget planning season.
May I ask one related question?
Yes.
David, have we a sense of whether there was any significant federal funding grants or the like? Just going back to Lynn's question, that would be an obvious source of concern given the current climate.
So direct federal funding, there are a couple of grants through the BPL fund that would have been NEH or MILS sponsored. In some cases, that money is already expended to us, and so it's not in jeopardy. Or, you know, because the proposed freeze is now on hold, we're still okay, but we need to continue to monitor that. And it certainly brings about a chilling effect around potential future opportunities, as we don't know. We will continue to hope for the best, but plan cautiously. The other large area where there is a funding exposure is with the E-rate funding that is administered by a quasi-federal agency, not by the federal government directly. And that that has value in the millions of dollars to the library. So should that be in jeopardy, we would have a serious budget deficit.
Thank you.
Just a note on this one, if I'm not mistaken, and thank you, Senator Rush, for giving us all this money. But as we add up those lines, my understanding is probably that BPL gets about 10% of the total of those line items per year. Does that sound about right?
We'll have that number in Emily's presentation.
I see it.
A little bit later
But that
on.
sounds about right, right? Great. So why don't we move on, and I yield the floor to Evelyn for the Trustees Finance and Audit Committee.
All right. Hope you can all hear me okay?
Yes.
We can.
Perfect. Okay, so we have a couple contracts here. I'm hoping that I see Emily. Hello, Emily. I have a couple contracts here for approval. The first one is the Microsoft 365. It's just a renewal for the use of Microsoft 365 for the library. And then the next one is the fleet of vehicles, and I'm gonna have Emily explain what the scope of that is and how the bid went about. So Emily, do you want to take it on?
Thank you. Good afternoon, trustees. The fleet of vehicles, we're looking to purchase a new fleet. It's 7 vehicles in total, 4 vans, which is what we use to transport the books around the system, 1 pickup, and then 2 passenger vehicles as well.
Before we take it to a vote, any questions regarding these 2 contracts?
Yeah, go.
Are those hybrid or electric vehicles, or internal combustion engines? What are we looking at? Do
The
you know?
2 passenger vehicles are hybrid, so we aren't able, just due to the infrastructure around the library, we're not able to go fully electric, but the 2 passenger vehicles are hybrid. The 4 vans and the 1 pickup truck, due to the size and the requirements of them, they don't actually have hybrid vehicles of that nature.
These presumably are in the FY24 budget already, or are these above and beyond?
We'd be purchasing them with the approval of the vote today, and it would be through unrestricted funds on the trustee side.
Okay, got it. So it's outside what was budgeted for this year?
Correct.
Got it. Okay, so above and beyond. And something very ticky-tacky. For number 1, does that come with Copilot? Are you aware what Copilot is by chance?
I am not, but we can definitely get you an answer.
Can we,
Anyway, it's a good add-on, and that's my guidance to have Copilot on it.
We can take a look.
Yep.
Thank you.
Every time I turn on my computer, I'm told how great it is.
By itself. That's fair enough. There are some doubters, of course. So,
Right.
Evelyn, do you want to call for a vote?
So, yeah, if there's no any other questions,
Can I just ask one?
These 2 contracts.
Sorry,
No, go
just to interject with one question. I mean, maybe we could just understand this new fleet of vehicles. That's, I presume, something that's seen as an operational necessity. There aren't viable alternatives to buying this new fleet of vehicles. Is this something that we think is operationally required?
The current vehicle fleet is quite old, honestly, and we've had to go through a lot of repairs with them. They're not, we've lost some of the features that we need, so now is the time to replace these.
And there's no alternative to actually buying cars that we think is
For the
practical?
past 8 or 10 years, we've actually leased the fleet, and we found through research that purchasing them outright is actually going to be less expensive than continuing to lease.
Thank you.
It's also the same number of vehicles, which is a decrease from the previous lease. So this is about the optimum number.
That's helpful.
All right, any more questions?
Evelyn's going to call for a vote.
All right, so if there are no more questions, can I please get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any nays? Motion passes. Thank you so much. Next slide, please.
Great. Moving on, sorry, go ahead, Evelyn.
No, go ahead. No, let me give you an
I'm
intro.
sorry, just a point of order. Did we vote on both of those together?
That's what I was going to ask.
yes, it was a slate.
Yes, as a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. As a slate, yep.
Thank you.
So we thought, the BPL budget is quite, it's quite complex. It has various, sources. And although, the Finance and Audit Committee lives this on a day-to-day, and we're very familiar with it, we thought that it would be appropriate with so many new trustees on board to do a BPL budget 101. So you can kind of understand all where the money comes from and how it comes together and our expenditures. And so Emily has put together some great slides that explain how it works. So I'm going to pass it on to Emily. Go ahead.
Thank you, Evelyn. As Evelyn mentioned, it's a quick overview. I know we're running a little short on time too, so any questions that y'all have, please just go ahead. Starting off here, there's 5 main sources that we use to fund the library's annual operating budget. City, state funding, which includes interlibrary loan, Library for the Commonwealth, and our state aid as well. Philanthropy through the fund and our other affiliates, the trust funds, and then earned revenue, which includes the private event program, royalties, leases, donation box contributions as well. Looking at those 5 funding sources, this is a breakdown of the current fiscal year. Our operating budget this year is about $62 million, a breakdown of what funds that. So 80% of our annual operating budget does come through the city budget, and then you can see the other figures here, about 10% through state sources, and then between 4 and 2 with the other pieces here.
What's the amount on philanthropy?
Next slide.
Thank you, David. Next slide. So this is a budget history comparison. And I do want to point out these are dollars spent. So when we're looking at trust funds, philanthropy, earned revenue, this is not the amount of money that was generated. This is the amount of money that was spent each year. State aid and the city budget, obviously we work endlessly to make sure that we spend every dollar that we receive from those sources. The other categories, it does flux a little bit depending on what the library needs to do in that fiscal year. FY25, obviously our current fiscal year, these are still budgeted numbers, and those will be updated obviously as the year continues. Does that answer your question, Cheryl?
Thank you. I guess one more.
Sure.
What's the difference between BPL fund and philanthropy? So it looks like for the first time this year, we're bucketing them separately.
Perfect. As the primary philanthropy partner, we wanted to start to pull out those dollars directly to be capturing those here.
Okay.
But just to say, if I understand this correctly, in 2025, we're anticipating that $1.4 million from the fund will be spent, and that the amount that's actually raised by the fund is completely different? Is that right?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, think about this as an operating budget,
Got it.
where are those funds coming from to spend the money you spend this year, not what's happening from a fundraising perspective or for dollars that can be spent over multiple periods of time. And we happen to have a fund update today, so we can talk a little bit more about that.
Great.
Next slide here, again with FY25, looking at our actual expenditures. So personnel is the largest line item. It's about 64% of the annual operating budget goes toward personnel. About 21% goes into service contracts. That includes the MEP, our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, the security contract, elevators, other service contracts that we have throughout the year. About 10% for collections, 3% in technology, and then 2% for buildings. Next, I have a breakdown of the largest expenditure piece, goes toward personnel. So I just wanted to show you where each of the personnel budgets were being spent. About 37% is neighborhood services, so that's staff basically working anywhere except for Central and Kovac. Library services, 28%. Library administration, which includes the president's office, HR, communications, finance, kind of back of house offices. Library operations at 12%, which is essentially facilities, the custodians, painters, laborers, carpenters, security that's on staff, our project management office as well, and then finally 8% within the research and special collections department.
Out of curiosity, does this include, and this last line include vacancies?
It does. So this is the actual budgeted amount for the entire staff. Trust funds, I wanted to touch on quickly. The library receives a 5% distribution annually through all of the trust funds that we hold within our accounts. 80% of the trust funds do have some sort of restriction on them. This is a really generalized grouping of those restrictions. They get much more specific. It could be, you know, a trust fund just about Joan of Arc, or maybe buying books for the Honan Alston branch. But these are just the general areas that we have to work with. And then here, the other category, it's around programming, building and maintenance, supporting staff. No questions today.
And then the total, just doing the math, I was told there's no math here, but 70 million, 70, about?
For our
the trust fund.
overall trust fund holdings.
Correct.
So we receive a 5% distribution from that every year. So our distribution for FY25, 3.5 million. If we go back a few slides, you see we haven't actually budgeted that total amount, but we will have the ability, we'll be receiving 3.5 million in our trust fund distribution.
And general, just, this is just my own learning, but growth of that trust fund obviously comes from market reactions, but how much, I guess, what's the growth year on year as we've seen it, more just due to contributions, if we separate that out? And we can get back to
We might have to invite you to a finance and audit committee meeting to sit with NEPC and learn about that. I don't have those figures with me right now, but we can definitely get back to you. They provide us with a really detailed account of exactly what they see as the trends. They're actually giving some recommendations for some new managers moving forward as well.
Yeah. And presumably you understand, I mean, the point of the question from my point of view is just how do we grow that balance sheet over time? So most likely philanthropy, but just trying to understand what the historical record has been on that.
Yeah, we have been generally doing really well, Ray. But we can give you a historical, but the funds have been doing really, really well. I'll look around in a minute and send a note.
Yeah, I would add that the growth of those trust funds have largely been either because of a new big donation, which really only happened prior to the existence of the Boston Public Library Fund, or it is investment policy that has garnered that. Today, our practice is that new donations, whether they be of an endowment level or an individual gift, come through the Boston Public Library Fund, unless they're coming through some other mechanism. So, yeah, just to keep that in mind as context.
I just want to keep you all on schedule. We are about 10 minutes behind schedule, so.
Moving on, we wanted to highlight what we see as some of the potential funding gaps. I think these are fairly self-explanatory, but I did want to call out the strategic plan recommendation. So what we've been talking about at the table today, we obviously need to figure out and prioritize how we're going to fund all the initiatives within the plan. My next slides are all about our FY26 submission. Does anyone have any questions on the overall budget components? Perfect. I wanted to give a brief update for our submission. We did submit our city operating maintenance budget on January 13th. What you're seeing right here is what we were appropriated for the current fiscal year, and then what we actually submitted in January for next year. It's about a 3.4% increase, which is primarily due to salary increases due to the contracts. We'll have the opportunity to chat with the Office of Budget Management and the Mayor's Office as well about some potential new investments. What we're focusing on really is around the organizational readiness portion of the strategic plan and resource development and capacity building. So looking at our buildings, looking at our collections and the staff in order to grow our base level and be able to activate some of those initiatives. Next up, we have benefited greatly from the city operating budget in the last few years. I just wanted to highlight some of the investments that they have put into the library. We're, next slide here, but we'll be having a conversation with them next week actually about additional investments for this year and how we can grow on what they've supplied to the library recently. Quick overview too of the process. So we did just submit the budget just last month. We're going to be meeting with the Office of Budget Management next week. And then the mayor's budget will be released on April 9th. So after that comes out, most likely the library will be having a city council hearing sometime in the April-May timeframe, but we won't have the actual adopted budget released until late June. Any questions? Thank you.
Oh, I didn't know whether you're going to go.
But I actually had a question on the next slide. I don't know if
I didn't know
you're
whether you're going to.
coming to this,
Yeah.
the mayor's recommended FY
budget.
26 to 29 capital budget. Is that the next slide, I think?
It is.
My question was the $50 million for the McKim master plan. What does that represent? Is that just
So that represents.
planning and?
No, it is the down payment towards design and renovation of the building. The first $1 million was assigned for that, for planning work in 2021. That is the mayor's commitment to this project, which we will be working on over the next couple of years. That money does not come available until at the earliest 2029, 2030. So it's in the 5-year plan, but with the understanding we can go to private philanthropy and say, hey, we have the city's commitment, or go to the state and go or maybe the federal government, and basically use this as leverage.
And what's the right way to think about the work that was done in 2021 or whenever it was done? Is that work that's going to be a helpful way of informing what gets done, or is there an opportunity to revisit that? How should we think about that?
We should think of that as conceptual, as in a conceptual master planning for possible renovations of the McKim building.
Okay.
We have shorter-term work to do, which now falls under one of those major initiatives in the strategic plan about the McKim building, to fill in gaps, shore up details, do work basically on revising. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be design, but it would be everything we might need to do between a very high-level conceptual master plan and getting ready for design. So we do have to do that in the interim.
Thank you.
And David, on that commitment from the city on the 50 million, is that something that a few years from now, budget constraints can get pulled as you go down the path, or is this committed capital?
So that is true for the entirety of the capital budget, as John Eschel, our Chief of Operations, is learning. We do a 5-year planning exercise, 5-year look ahead with the city's capital department every year. So it can change every year, and that changes due to available capital, changing building needs, or mayoral priorities. So it's in there, but we should continue to talk about it every year so it doesn't not stay in there. It's a double negative on that one. So
Thank you.
But the plan had always been, yes, we did part of the Central Library 2015, 2016. We have this amazing portfolio of branch renovations, more work to do. But to continue this in a balanced portfolio way that allows us to respond to building emergencies, renovate our branches, and continue to renovate our central library.
For another meeting, I suspect the trustees, or at least I'd be interested in sort of just seeing the phasing of each of these and just understanding sort of how the capital plan sort of lays itself out over the next 5 years.
Yeah. Be good. And certainly that will be best done after our next conversation with the budget office.
Yep.
David, if I could, I'm looking at this plan, and I see that it appears that, it's at $20 million or so to renovate a branch. Is that fair to say?
Sure. I mean, and that number has increased. A few years ago, I would have said 15 to 18. Now it's 20 to 25, depending on what we're doing.
So I'm curious about the South End branch, which is only at 2.5. Is that, I know that that's been closed for a long time and because of some flooding issues. Is that not going to be a complete renovation?
It will, but what was pre-approved was enough to get us through design, basically, so that once design is sufficiently complete and the estimates are done in conjunction with that design work, we will then hopefully see a reflection in the capital budget that speaks to the total value of that project. That's not the only one there are others in here that are billed as either repairs or as just a programming study. And so the nature of things is there's a placeholder number to get us started, a design number sometimes. Sometimes you have design and construction already bundled together, and then that has to be changed.
The reason I ask about South End, the South End specifically is I know that because of the emergency nature of those repairs, it kind of got bumped up a little bit in the queue. So does that not have an impact on the budget number here?
It will prevent us from adding more things behind it at that fully funded level. That's what the budget impact will be.
Thank you.
Yep. And I believe I am complete. Thank you, John. I'm sorry. More questions next time. And at this point, I think we move to the BPL fund presentation.
Unless you had anything about the legislative agenda that you wanted to add.
I did mention that
All right,
during
just making sure.
the operating section, so thank you.
The one piece I was just going to say is I had a great meeting with Senator Rush, and I suspect the offer still stands to perhaps do some road showing at in the legislature. Great. Thank you. Great. So with that in mind, then we will transition to the next agenda item for BPL fund presentation by Jeff and Paula.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. We're going to do a quick update on the Boston Public Library Fund. Obviously, we talked a little bit about philanthropy already as a part of the meeting. The fund has been around now for 5 years. You can think of it as the reimagination of the original foundation, which started in the late 90s. We have raised over $35 million in the last 5 years, which is pretty amazing. So I wanted to thank Paula and Carol from the fund who are here today. Thank you for everything you've done. I'm the chair of the board. We have 14 other amazing board members who are with us on the fund, the 9 staff members that help Kara and Paula as well. This picture is not the directors because these people are way too young to be the director. But we have 110 emerging leaders now, which is an organization that we started to help really introduce the philanthropy and the library to the younger generation. We had almost 600 people, I think, come to our Night in the Stacks in October. The event was sold out. So it's been amazing to see the response from the community about what we're doing at the library. And at the same time that they're learning about the library, they're learning about philanthropy. So it's been an amazing way for us to tell our story in a more consistent way. I also want to acknowledge that the fund is not the only organization that does philanthropy for the library. I know Louisa is here from the Associates. We have MAP Center representatives with Chris is, here in the room with us. So there are the Friends organization here at Alston Brighton, the other Friends of the branches. There are many people who are involved in telling the story of the library and helping us to raise, as you saw on that budgeted number, that little green slice, which is about 4% of the budget. We need to get that bigger. And that's really what the focus of the fund has been and will continue to be. But we don't do it alone. We do it with our partners like the Associates and the MAP Center. We do it at the library. We do it with the branches. So it's all very, very important work that the fund is helping to center for the library and for the community. If you look on the next slide, please. We think about our work and working hand in glove with the library by aligning what we're doing with the strategic plan. So this is a very exciting time for the fund and for philanthropy to have a new strategic plan that we can use to help tell the story. Because I think Paula and Carol will echo this, and whenever I'm having communications with anybody about what the library does, we do 2 things by having those conversations. 1, of course, we raise capital, which is needed. But 2, we get to tell the stories that you see on this page. And I guarantee you, every single time we have one of these conversations, the very first thing somebody says is, I didn't know the library did that. And it's just great to be able to use philanthropy to tell the story of the library and to get more people understanding the importance that the library plays in the role of the community. So I'll give you a couple examples. of these areas within activating democracy, unlocking opportunity, and sharing treasures, and how we at the fund tell the story of what the library is doing and try and increase that slice of that 4% pie. So on the next page, you can see the activating democracy sleeve of what we're doing. One program that we at the fund have helped fund to the tune of $175,000 is English for speakers of other languages. This participation in this program, David will echo me, has gone up tremendously since the pandemic. We've seen a significant amount of increase. Part of that is us offering more ways to engage through Zoom. Part of it is more needs for these services. So we had over 2,000 different classes, 15,000 people attended, and the fund helped provide funding for that to the tune of about $175,000. On activating democracy, the other thing that we spent a lot of time on, we've talked a little bit about the geopolitical environment that we live in. This was probably one of my favorite philanthropic activities that we have engaged in, which is on the next slide for Books on Demand, if we could move it forward. We were one of the first libraries in the country to think about how we could provide access to books that might not be available in other states to people to get Boston Public Library card to check it out. We raised about $100,000 at the fund to enable this initiative, essentially to buy the licenses for the ebooks. And all we asked in return was that people tell us why they want this card. What do you need this card for? And I will tell you, I teared up a little bit in some of the things that people said, to hear them explain what they were looking for, the fact that they didn't have access to this in their local library. So just one example here from somebody who lives in Texas who wants to have access to what we have because they can't see it in Texas. And there are stories over and over again of people who couldn't get what they wanted where they lived and were accessing it through the Boston Public Library. On the next page, unlocking opportunities. So switching from democracy to unlocking opportunity. We at the fund have raised about $1 million for these 2 residencies. One is an entrepreneur in residence. This is now in its 3rd year, so somebody who comes into the Kirstein Business Center and is available for people who are either founders of small businesses or thinking about starting a small business or currently working at an employee and doing a side hustle and thinking about ways to increase their income. Has been an amazing resource for folks in the community. And then in our Roxbury branch, there's a kitchen, and we have a new chef in residence, which the fund has helped to fund as well. Next page is on social services. We obviously have social services available at BPL. We were talking a little bit earlier about EDI and the fact that we were thinking about how do we, you use the word amplify, how do we amplify these services? And I think that's what the fund has been trying to do. One of the amazing things about the social services in the city is oftentimes they're not well understood. They aren't utilized as much as they are. People don't have the information that they need to be able to access them. Having the library be a point of service for that has been incredibly helpful. And so the fund has helped fund some of that opportunity as well. On the next page, workforce and career counselors. The library has been, if you could move it forward one more page, the library has been at the forefront of innovation. You've heard that a lot throughout the day about how the library is always innovating and changing what it is that we do. We've been unlocking opportunity for people by helping them get jobs for a long time. Through the partnership with State Street, we've gotten about $500,000 to provide additional services for people who are looking for either upskills training or who are currently out of a job and looking to the library to help them find their next role. I already said I had one favorite. Now I have a second favorite on this next one, which is branching out for the mini Catalyst grants. We heard Karen talk about the amazing things that the Friends of Alston Brighton have been able to allow us to do here. That's the next slide, Pamela. Thank you. That the Alston Brighton Friends have enabled this branch to do. And the staff of the fund had the great idea to think about creating a mini Catalyst grant that all branches could apply for. Well, we would provide centralized funds, and they could come back to us, basically pitching. It's almost like a pitching program, pitching ideas that they would have. We funded one here that, put my glasses on, that was called Engaging teens through manja making and martial arts. Sounds pretty interesting. That was over $5,000 that we did that for. And so every different branch was able to put out for programs that would help them interact with the community exactly like the way you saw Karen talk about in her presentation, and the different community members who are coming to use the library. And then finally, on the sharing treasures side, the library is so many different things that I've just talked about that you've heard everybody talk about. We obviously have books that we lend out. We also have special collections and treasures that we don't lend out, but we let people come use. And then we have the original research collection, which is about 400,000 volumes. It's very, very old. It had never been digitized. It had never been cleaned. We got over a $2 million grant to help allow more access to that collection and provide digitization as well. I mentioned already the fact that the fund sits at the center of philanthropy for the library, but it's not the only home for philanthropy. So the MAP Center has done an amazing job of reaching out to the community, using the resources that the library has to provide educational services to children and adults. If you have not been to the MAP Center, it's amazing. They have a great exhibition right now, and they are really leading the way in thinking about how do you open up what you have from a treasurer's perspective and make it usable for the community. And so the fund has partnered with the library, with the MAP Center to be able to do that. And then finally, sharing treasures, we got an amazing bequest of $1 million from Howard Cooper, who grew up in Dorchester. He visited Central as a teen. When he passed away, he left us $1 million as an endowment to help increase exactly sort of what we're talking about with the MAP Center, the collection that we have in the LGBTQIA area, to expand access to that. And I think the really other important thing that Paula and the staff and I have talked about in the past is we actually didn't have Howard in our system. We didn't know who Howard was. We didn't realize how important the library was for him. And then we got a notice that we got $1 million grant. We had another one that was for $5 million from a family that lived in Maine, who put the Boston Public Library in their will. And that story happens over and over and over again, which is very powerful, I think, to us and to all of us as an example of what this institution means to so many people. We get inspired by that, but we also think that's an opportunity. So the fund has created something called the 1848 Society, which if you do put the Boston Public Library in your will, you let us know, you can become a member of that society. So that has been amazing to see how important that has been and how important that's going to be going forward. So what's next for the fund? I think it aligns really well with the conversation that we were having about the strategic plan and how do you actually take it to the next level. The fund is doing that same kind of work. What should the fund be looking at from a team perspective, from an operational perspective, to do everything that we need to do to help enable what the library wants to do from a strategic plan perspective, and at the end of the day, take that very small green slice and make it a big percentage of the pie. Any questions?
I mean, I would just like to say thank you, first of all. That's an amazing sort of body of work, and $35 billion is nothing to be sneezed at, to be sure. And the fact that it enables the library to do more than it would otherwise be able to do is what is truly essential here. And I just think the context of this with strategic plan and what that will call on us to do with all of those initiatives, this together is a foundation of what is ahead. So thank you.
Can I just also add, I mean, raising $35 million is unbelievable and takes an incredible amount of work that we don't even see. So thanks to Jeff and Paula and the whole team on behalf of the trustees. I mean, I just think the work is amazing. So, especially in the world we're living in today where philanthropic dollars are really hard to get. So thank you, thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, one of the jokes we've talked about a bunch is when we started doing this work 20 years ago, everybody was like, oh, I love the library. It's such a hidden gem. And we unfortunately still hear that story today. And when you first hear it, you focus on the gem part, and the second time you hear it, you focus on the hidden part. So we at the fund are really thinking about how we can continue to tell this story. And thank you for the thank you on the 35 million, but I think that's just the beginning of what we, in combination with the staff and the trustees, can raise for this amazing institution in the future.
Well, and Jeff, I got to tell you, some of the programs are so focused and tailored, and you can see the results. Instead of some of the bigger plans and things that are out of people's reach, this is something that really touches people's lives and changes them, which I think is something to be said for the library. 35 million is a lot, but to be able to do these tailored type of programs for the library, it's fantastic.
And also, just to add, probably expressing what we're all feeling the past few weeks, it is, and how demoralizing some of the news out of Washington is. It's just, and I hope everyone here feels this way, it's you know, it makes us feel like obviously we're so happy we live in Massachusetts and happy we're, you know, Boston is our capital city, but to see this kind of work being done in the face of what we're experiencing out of the feds is just really encouraging. So you've started off the day really, you know, once again, reading the news, you know, and feeling very demoralized, but so I don't know about anyone else, but ending the day feeling very encouraged by what we're doing here. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No, I remember the quote of the patron who said it was effervescent coming into this branch, and I feel the same way about the library, so thank you.
While we're giving kudos, I echo what my fellow trustees said, but I really want to give you kudos for nurturing the next gen of philanthropists. That is really what we need to do as we pass the baton, and that's hard work too, so that excited me.
Yeah, I've had the privilege of going to the Night in the Stacks event the past few years, and it's amazing how many people show up. I know you're there too, John, others, Jeff, David. It's really an amazing turnout, and I'm sure this is being considered, but anything we can do to increase the number of people in that program or think of other events that would resonate with that group would be great.
We'll have to talk to the fire marshal because we were cut off at 600.
And Jeff, do you want to share the date of the next literary? No, because it's.
Oh, I know,
it's an
actually,
awesome
no,
date.
I actually know the date, you're right,
Exactly.
right.
It's an awesome date.
It's October 31st, so it's Halloween. So if you think young people normally have fun, wait till you see them on Halloween.
That's what I meant. Maybe a couple closing comments and maybe just a question, actually. Just so, number one, echoing my fellow trustees. I mean, just terrific work. And I know, Paula, you know, your team, just kudos. Number two, opportunity, right? And I had the opportunity, as part of this role, being a trustee of also the Museum of Fine Arts. And so that's a different model, obviously. And through David, I had the opportunity to visit the New York Public Library. And we sort of heard that's a different model as well, too. Understanding that the different models are there, it seems that the opportunity within Boston is much bigger, and we can grasp it. So that's a comment. The question I had is, you know, eye-opening, and eye-opening isn't the right word, but a lot of programmatic areas, right, which I think is terrific, right, and you see that. I'm curious how the fund thinks about choosing amongst different programmatic areas, right? You can imagine sort of a menu of choices that David has. It may be something from the board, but it may be also from the donors themselves who have sort of ideas.
Sure. I think that's a great question. I think we start first and foremost with the strategic plan and what the library needs, and then we try and match those people with donors. I think that's incredibly important. I think one of the hardest things to do in philanthropy is turn down a gift that doesn't make sense from a strategic perspective, and that's what we try and do, is like make sure that whatever the library is looking to do, we do. I mean, the amazing thing, to your point, John, on the tailored programs is like, that's what the library has to offer. We didn't like make that list up for a donor. That's already what we're doing, and we just need to expose it to donors so that they see something that moves them, that they're passionate about, that has them help us engage the community in those activities.
Well said.
Perfect. We can get a round of applause for this work.
Oh, Jeff, wait a minute, you do need to stand up and show your socks.
Oh, yes, sorry. The other thing that the fund does a great job at is swag. So I wore, and I'm not going to take my shoes off in a couple, but I did wear my branch, Boston Public Library branch socks, and this is the Alston branch right here.
Oh, nice.
Paul, I think we have some extra socks. If anybody wants some socks, I think we have some extra socks.
We have one pair left.
Yes.
Great. So next agenda item, recognition and committee closeouts. So want to take a moment for two specific committees that we will be sunsetting. One of them, of course, is the Strategic Planning Committee. We did our work at the start and at the end. We obviously have a ton of work to do with the implementation, but want to give huge thanks, of course, to the trustees that were a part of this, and including our chair, Christian Lestra, Vice Chair Jose Masso, Cheryl, thank you very much, and Joe Berman. I believe that is the trustees that are on the committee, so thank you. And really. The second one is the Community Engagement Committee, and I say this one not because community engagement is not important, but one of the things that we've been talking about amongst David and a few others is how do we get the committee structure right, the purpose, the right number of people, the right cadence, et cetera. So this one is one that we're going to sunset for now as we figure out sort of the right charter for it, and I did want to thank the trustees who are part of that. Evelyn Arena Ortiz, Joe Berman, of course, Jose Masso as vice chair, and previously Representative Chyla Tyler. So thank you very much to those trustees.
Ray, one person you forgot was
Yes.
former Linda Dorsina Fori, who was a former trustee as well.
Of course. Thank you very much as chair.
And we will be saying, we'll be issuing thank you letters to all of the members of both committees so that their time and their efforts have been appreciated across both, not just the trustees, but the non-trustee members as well. Thank you.
Great. Anything else? So general updates, I really don't have any, but I do want to take a moment to wish congratulations to a number of our trustees for their professional journeys. Similar to the way that we want to congratulate Evelyn for winning her golf tournament. Others have also achieved wonderful things as well too. I believe Julie Kim is on the line, and Julie, my understanding is that it has been announced that you will be CEO of Global Takeda in June 2026. So terrific, absolutely terrific. We'll save our applause because we have two more. Jim is not here. Jim has stepped down from the Boston's Bar Foundation after 11 years. He will be the Bars Foundation board chair and managing director of the Pilot House. And when we talk to Jim, this is good succession planning for him, and he's really excited by his new role. And Najit is not here as well too, but she was just named in November, sorry that we didn't acknowledge that, CEO of Mass Development by Governor Maura Healey. So huge kudos to the trustees. It speaks to sort of the level and the caliber of people here guiding the library, and just want to offer a round of applause to everybody. And with that, I think we move to new business. Does anyone have anything to add from the trustees?
I guess I'll just add one thing, picking up on Jeff and Paula with philanthropy and affiliate organization. On behalf of the associates of the Boston Public Library, whose executive director, Louisa Bissett, is in the audience with us, I just wanted to remind everybody that on April 27th of this year, we'll be having our annual Literary Lights Gala at the, used to say the Park Plaza. Fairmont Copley Plaza. So I hope that you all are interested in joining us. Louisa, do we have information for people? Or
We do. Our keynote speaker is Elizabeth Stroud. Tickets went on sale earlier this week. And
Yep.
if you are interested, connect with me afterwards. So April 27th.
it's April 27th, it's a Sunday night. We've got an amazing list of honorees and presenters.
If I may, just to add on to that, such a wonderful experience to take a tour of the special collections. And, I would love to arrange a field trip for those who haven't been in a while or who have never been before. Just magical to spend time there. And obviously one of the big themes is how can we get that not hidden, so to speak, and out to the world.
Thank you, Ray.
So, great. Any other new business? Hearing none, opening up for public comments. Pamela?
Thank you. We do have approximately 8 signups, 7 in person and 1 online. So we are going to take the 1 online first, just so that we can close that out. We have Carissa online. I just want to remind everyone there is a 2-minute limit on public comment. I do ask that you respect, as we do have a hard stop at 5. And I'll cue you when it's time, when the timer goes off. Is Carissa on? Muted. Could you unmute yourself, Carissa? Why don't we give it a minute, and we'll start here. First, we have Eve Griffin. If anyone needs us to bring the mic back to you, please feel free to let us know. Otherwise, the microphone is here in the front of the room. Just raise your hand if you need us to bring the mic back to you. Okay. Go right ahead, Eve. You have 2 minutes. Following Eve, we have Ali Hahn and then Amy Layton, just so that we know who's next.
My name is Eve Griffin. I have worked at the library for more than 12 years as the curator of fine arts in the Special Collections Department at the Boston Public Library. In 2019, I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. This is a terminal diagnosis.
Here, I'm going to step in. This is a terminal diagnosis. Managing her illness requires ongoing treatment for the rest of her life. That includes regular chemotherapy, frequent medical consultations, and occasionally hospitalizations due to side effects. As a result, each year since her diagnosis, she exceeds the hours of sick time BPL staff are allocated. Fortunately, her union, the Professional Staff Association, provides a sick bank, a pool of hours donated by PSA members designed to support colleagues facing long-term health challenges. The PSA has unanimously approved her request for additional paid sick time from this fund. Library leadership has denied this approved request and continues to deny it, despite advocacy, appeals, and common sense. Let us all be clear. These sick bank hours are not additional costs to the institution. They are already donated, accounted for, and budgeted. These hours are intended precisely for circumstances like Eve Griffin's. By denying her request, the library is sending a troubling message that employees facing severe illness are seen not as valued members of this institution, but as a burden. The Boston Public Library is an esteemed, respected, and beloved institution. However, its reputation must be built not only on the services it provides to the public, but also on how it treats its own employees. This is a defining moment, an opportunity to demonstrate that the BPL values its people as much as it values its mission.
Thank you. Ally, would you like to speak as well on, you were signed up next?
Yes, please. My name is Allison Ali Hahn, and I'm the current president of the Professional Staff Association. And I also have some words from Eve to share that the union has co-signed. Professional staff members contribute hours to the sick bank voluntarily in a spirit of solidarity and compassion so that no colleague has to choose between their health and their livelihood. In the decision to deny Eve her hours granted to her from our sick bank is not overturned, it sets a dangerous precedent. When solutions exist, even when colleagues rally together in support, an institution can choose indifference over humanity. The library should not be complicit in fostering an environment that marginalizes those with disabilities or serious medical conditions. We call on you, the trustees, to use your position of responsibility and public trust to overturn this decision and to take an active role in ensuring that the benefits and protections offered to library employees align with the values and missions that BPL claims to uphold. The library can and must do better for Eve, for its staff, and for the principles of fairness and compassion that define its leadership. And some words of my own. You'll have most likely seen that there is a petition circulating widely with the public that has over 3,400 signatures and comments of support for Eve being granted this leave. We did not take sending a document to the public lightly, rallying them lightly. 235 staff members in mid-January presented President David Leonard with a petition that we had all signed asking them to reconsider and grant Eve her leave. It was ignored. The only response we received was that the petition had been seen. There was no further conversation. Our grievance remains unanswered, and Eve remains without those hours of sick time. So we ask you to please think about, when you're seeing all this wonderful stuff about the work that we're doing, please think about the people who are doing it and the ways that we stand up to help each other when our senior leadership fails us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Amy Layton. Thank you, Amy. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Hello, my name is Amy Layton, and I am speaking to you as a branch representative today. While I'm speaking to all of you on the stage, I would like to implore you individually. Dr. Liu, when you became a doctor, you likely realized that there was an expectation of you to do no harm. So it makes me wonder how you feel, knowing surely by now that the Boston Public Library management has denied Eve the opportunity to access a sick leave bank, which is donated to the members by members of the library like myself. I wonder truly if you would ever consider a patient of yours to be an undue burden, like BPL management has called Eve. Mr. Berman, Ms. Cronin, Mr. Rush, because you have careers with the law, you certainly remember one of the most iconic statements from the Declaration of Independence, that we have certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Eve is fighting for her life, and not just her life, but her livelihood. Without access to the sick bank, she must choose between her job and taking care of herself. Why does management get to deny her the assistance we are so willing to give her? Ms. Ball, Mr. Heiler, Mr. Hawkins, Mr. Levine, and Mr. Westra, you all have careers regarding finance. You know how important it is to pay rent and bills. Without access to the sick bank, BPL's management are severely limiting Eve's ability to manage her finances. You certainly all know how stressful this topic can be, so why not make it easier for her, rather than harder in this already difficult time? And to Ms. Ortiz, Mr. Canales, Ms. Kim, Mr. Masso, Ms. Olayowola, and Dr. Wooten, I urge you to think of your parents, your siblings, and your children. Would you idly stand by as your terminally ill loved one is labeled an undue burden? Would you allow their workplace to determine whether they can attend necessary doctor's appointments? And to the members of library management who are here with us today, are you willing to have someone's life on your hands? Are you willing to tarnish the liberal and inclusive ideals that you tout? Or are you willing to extend a helping hand and do
Amy.
what librarians would do for you? Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Amy. Next, I have Crystal Rogers.
Hi, a statement of my own. Last week, Eve Griffin and I met with a high school student intern to share about our work. The intern glowed as she spoke about how much she loves BPL and is thinking about becoming a librarian herself. The library is truly a magical place that inspires people, not just because of our amazing resources, but because of the staff who keep this place running. You know what I don't find inspiring, however? BPL and city leadership's refusal of a committed colleague's ability to get the support she needs. The denial of Eve Griffin's use of the extended sick leave bank contradicts all the positive things that the library stands for. In an email that was very thoughtful, sent by BPL President David Leonard to library staff affirming our commitment to supporting our immigrant user communities, he concludes by saying, quote, "Together we will continue to offer knowledge, connection, and a welcoming space, and to the best of our ability, support to each other." Is this denial of Eve's ability to use the sick time available to her support? Is this the kind of workplace we want to foster? We can't truly say we commit to supporting our most vulnerable community members when we're not doing everything we can to support our own staff. BPL and city leadership are being given the opportunity to make the compassionate decision, one that inspires because it centers the humanity of the people who work here. I strongly urge you, President Leonard and the Board of Trustees, use your power for good. Stand up for what's right in a time when it's more important than ever, not just for Eve, but for all of us. We are all just a diagnosis or unexpected emergency away from needing this very same support. Help keep BPL the magical place that we know it can be by showing us that you truly care about the staff who make it so.
Thank you. Next, I have Alyssa Catalick.
Good afternoon, Alyssa Catalick, President of 1526. On behalf of my members, I stand in support of Sister Eve. The library and trustees have a long history of supporting BPL employees who face adversity, beginning with the Emily Sedgwick Fund, the BPL Employees Sick and Help Fund, the Alice Lincoln Whitney Fund, and the Weiss McNulty Fund. Over the 31 years I've been employed, we've used these funds to support our members along with our union sick banks. I've sadly watched my members work up until they physically weren't able and passed away from terminal cancer, and the library has been a partner with us up until now, and they could do this because of the support of the administration. We used to be a family, dysfunctional maybe, but a family, and always stood together to support each other. On January, you just heard this one, on January 29th, President Leonard sent a message to all staff, and I'll just read the end of it, free to all, the best of our ability to support to each other. And yet again, does this only speak about the patrons who use our services, but not the staff? The welfare employees has been pushed to the background instead of respecting our work. The strategic plan voted on last meeting talks about organizational readiness and fostering a supportive and welcoming workplace culture built on trust, well-being, and belonging. Here we're doing the opposite. The Board of Trustees was incorporated by the Acts of 1878, Chapter 114, which gave this board the authority to make rules and regulations related to the library and its branches. It is time to take back your power, both from the city, who is a part of this decision, and truly govern the library using the authority granted to you. This organization used to be known as independent, again, something you've lost over the years. The city departments of Human Resources and Labor Relations now seemingly control almost every act and decision made relative to your staff, to us, the people who, again, you saw all these wonderful things that we do every day. As trustees, you have a choice to make. Continue the work of your predecessors who supported BPL employees and did so publicly by establishing trust, or bow down to the city and send a message that this organization is no longer employee-friendly. Thank you.
Thank you, perfect timing. Next, I have, I'm sorry, I cannot read your writing. I don't know who it is. It starts with the B. That's me. Two words, there we go. All right. Thank you.
Howdy. My name is Bryce Kieran Healy. I'm Chief Steward of the PSA, and I've been a cataloger at the Boston Public Library for almost 11 years now. I'm going to keep this short. I know everyone has places to be and things to do, and I don't think you're going to be surprised that I'm also here to talk about the denial of Eve Griffin's draw from the Extended Sick Leave Fund. I think this is a deeply unjust decision. I think it shows a lack of humanity, compassion, and leadership, and I think it's out of sync and out of line with the purported values of this library system, especially in relation to the new strategic plan which has been announced and published to staff. I, with my union colleagues, we want to reaffirm that we have 100% support for Eve Griffin, not just amongst our board, but amongst our union membership, and that goes for both unions, I believe. And we implore you to reverse this decision and to grant Eve the time needed to manage her, unfortunately, terminal medical condition. This is not something that's her fault. She's not someone who wastes time and abuses sick time and gold bricks around. She's an exemplary employee. She's never been disciplined, never received a poor evaluation, but I think she's being treated poorly now. I hope that you'll change that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryce. And last, I did have Louisa. I know that after that, that's a little, I was going to say, Joe, I believe, commented on that for you. Is the Carissa online still available? Yep, go right ahead, Carissa, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you for allowing me to comment. I became aware of this situation via the online petition that was mentioned, which now has upwards of 3,500 signatures. I'm also a librarian in a large metropolitan system, and this is the situation that would not occur where I work. Especially after listening to the meeting and hearing about the strategic plan and the comments by the new EDI employee to support employees and staff, the decision or non-decision just does not seem in line with your mission to help your staff. And I hope you will reconsider and do what's right.
Thank you. That concludes the, as long as that, I have no, sure, go right ahead. Could you just state your name so that I can get it for the record?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Disadoro. I am president of the Alston Civic Association. I want to welcome you to the Honan Alston Library and thank you for coming out this evening. I will be very quick. We are a civic organization that has been in business for over 60 years. We talk a lot about community engagement and activating this kind of space, the community room and what have you. One thing that has, of course, changed the whole paradigm of everything was the current COVID situation. And we used to meet here at the library the third Wednesday of every month, and it was a great community outpouring. And people also, after the meetings or before, would walk around the library and get to know the library a little bit better. The problem is that we have been virtual since, and there is a great demand to transfer it to a hybrid situation. I could not envision bringing all this equipment in with me every month to do a hybrid meeting of the Alston Civic Association. But here's our thing. I would, first of all, think about it in your strategic planning across the city, that community rooms are a great place for people to experience the library. And technology evolves, and you need to start thinking about how can we upgrade the community rooms to handle community engagement the way it's done today. But here's our situation. We are fortunate enough to have a community partner who has expressed interest in paying for the upgrade so that we don't have to carry all this stuff in. I can come in with a laptop and plug in and do my meeting and allow people who are very busy in their normal lives to come in virtually as well. I would hope to believe that there's a way that we could work together, that I could cut through all the bureaucracy and with the funding in hand, work out an arrangement where we can get this upgrade done to the Honan Alston so that we can get back and not only reacquainting individuals in our community in person, but also allowing a much larger crowd to participate virtually as well. So please give that some thought. And I will reach out with you to an email if there's a contact person. Very selfishly, okay, great. We would be happy to do that. Thanks again for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I do also want to let you know they were shared with you, and they will also be upgraded, as there were a few additions today of some written public comments. They were put into your meeting materials that were provided to you in advance, and there will be additional ones that will be added to that online. That concludes public comment.
Great. On behalf of all the trustees, we appreciate public comments. We just note without judgment that there's a standing policy for the Board of Trustees not to comment on personnel matters. With that, I will transition to next agenda item, which is adjournment. And I believe the adjournment's actually March.
That is correct.
Next meeting is
Good
going to be
eyes.
March 18th.
Yes, it will not be here again. It will be at Central Library on March 18th at 8:30 a.m.
Great.
Please check the website, though, in case there's any changes.
2025.
Correct.
With that in mind, I adjourn.